in this lesson, we're going to talk about change. If you want things to stay as they are, things will have to change. Giuseppe Tomasi de Lampedusa, an Italian writer, says so. Do you like change? How often do things change at your office, at your job, or in your life? How do you react to change? Do you accept it? Do you resist it? Do you love it, or do you hate it? Today, we're going to be practicing how to talk about change and, of course, some grammar as well. But of course, we'll begin by looking at some listening comprehension. Are you ready? Let's begin.
How do you advise businesses which are planning to change?
The two important things to take into account when advising businesses is, first of all, help them understand what does success look like. What are they going to change? How are they going to measure that change? And how will they know they've been successful? And I think the second key point is to make sure people are fully engaged in the change, that they feel this is something they are doing for themselves and not something which is being done to them.
What are the typical problems that businesses face when they're going through change?
But change is a very difficult process. There are many problems, but I would say the two perhaps most important ones are, first of all, what we think of as change fatigue. Organisations have often faced wave after wave of change, programme after programme. Organisations become very cynical about programmes' ability to deliver real change and change that's sustained over time. So it can be very hard to bring people along and create passion, enthusiasm around change when they've seen it again and again. And the second big area that I see is the ability to get leaders engaged and aligned around the change, so that leadership speaks with one voice. Leadership provides a role model for the organisation and, very importantly, helps the organisation stay focused on the change throughout what is sometimes a long and difficult process.
Can you give us an example of an organisation that you have helped to change?
We work with a wide range of organisations around the world. One we helped recently was Nokia and Siemens when they merged their networks business. And that was a very exciting change programme at a time of trying to create better value for the organisation. We helped NSN create a future for the organisation. So we had 8,000 people involved around the world in a conversation over 72 hours in which they constructed the values of the future organisation, and following that then put changes in place that would make that future organisation a reality for them.
Okay, so when was the last time you experienced any change at work or in your career? What did the speaker say about change fatigue? What does it mean to suffer from change fatigue? Fatigue, of course, is the state of being tired of an activity or generally feeling exhausted. Well, today we're going to learn, of course, how to speak about change in different grammatical contexts. Let's begin. Our first exercise phase is the past simple and present perfect. Past simple and present perfect, exercise 1. Complete the text. Choose the correct option. Here we have a report on marketing strategy. Are you ready to begin? Let's go. In a meeting held on Monday, April 15, it was proposed that our company should change its marketing strategy. In the past, it was or has been our policy to use mainly radio and TV for advertising our services. So what do you say? It was our policy to use mainly radio and TV for advertising our services, or it has been our policy to use mainly radio and TV for advertising our services? Do we use past simple and past simple or present perfect? However, over the past 10 or 15 months, there dash a number of significant changes. So what do we say? There were, or they have been, a number of significant changes. What do you think? A number of significant changes. Now, the cost of TV and radio advertising dash dramatically since the beginning of last year. Rose or has risen. Do you say, in addition, the results of our advertising campaigns last year were rather disappointing or have been disappointing? What do you think? We dash some market research between September and October that there had been, so what do you say? We conducted or have conducted some market research between September and October, which showed that there had been only a slight increase in sales following our main campaign, or which has shown that there had been only a slight increase in sales following our main campaign. So do you say showed or has shown? Therefore, it was suggested at the meeting that we should now reduce our TV and radio advertising and embrace internet advertising instead, or it has been suggested at the meeting that we should now reduce our TV and radio advertising and embrace internet advertising instead. This idea dash, in fact, first put forward for consideration 2 years ago and dash explored in depth by a special team since then. So what do we say? This idea was in fact first put forward, or this idea has been in fact first put forward for consideration 2 years ago and was explored in depth by a special team since then, or has been explored in depth by a special team since then? What's the answer? According to the team's study, the cost of internet advertising increased or has increased far less than TV and radio advertising over the last year. In addition, online advertising will also enable us to reach a much wider audience. Are you ready to check your answer? What did you choose? Let's go. So, in a meeting held on Monday, April 15, it was proposed that our company should change its marketing strategy. In the past, it was our policy to use mainly radio and TV for advertising our services. However, over the past 10 or 15 months, there have been a number of significant changes. The cost of TV and radio advertising has risen dramatically since the beginning of last year. In addition, the results of our advertising campaigns last year were rather disappointing. We conducted some market research between September and October, which showed that there had been only a slight increase in sales following our main campaign. Therefore, it was suggested at the meeting that we should now reduce our TV and radio advertising and embrace internet advertising instead. This idea was, in fact, first put forward for consideration 2 years ago and has been explored in depth by a special team since then. According to the team's study, the cost of internet advertising has increased, far less than TV and radio advertising over the last year. In addition, online advertising will also enable us to reach a much wider audience. Now, what's the difference between past simple and present perfect? Now, past simple is used when referring to events that happened at a specific time in the past. A specific time in the past. For example, we have here, in addition, the results of our advertising campaigns last year were rather disappointing. So it's speaking specifically of a time frame, which is last year. Now, the present perfect refers to events that begin at some time in the past, but carry on into the present. For example, however, over the past 10 or 15 months, there have been a number of significant changes. This means that these significant changes began to occur or happen over the past 10 or 15 months until now. Maybe it will continue into the future, but we know that the events started 10 or 15 months ago and are still obtainable in the present. This is the major difference between past simple and present perfect. Let's look at one more example each. This idea was, in fact, first put forward for consideration 2 years ago and has been explored in depth by a special team since then. Did you just ask, why are they so similar and how are they different? Well, look, it was first put forward for consideration exactly 2 years ago. However, since then, that means 2 years ago until now, which means beginning 2 years ago until the present, it has been explored in depth by a special team since then. This is how to use your past simple and your present perfect. Other examples include, I was at home yesterday. I was at home in the morning. Speaking specifically about yesterday. And in the second example, you have in the morning. That's 2 examples actually for past simple. Now let's look at 2 examples for present perfect. I have known you for 2 years. We have been friends for 2 years. The present perfect will usually have a form of the verb to have or has. I have known you for 2 years. That means our friendship, or we started to know each other beginning 2 years ago until now. We have been friends for 2 years. Our friendship started 2 years ago until now, and we're still friends. Okay, friends? That's it for this exercise. Now you know how to use your past simple and present perfect tenses. And we've just spoken about change in advertisement. So, how does your company advertise? How has your company advertised differently over the past few years compared to times before? Are there any changes in your company's sales or performance due to a change in advertising? What do you think about internet advertising? Okay, now let's listen some more about change. Okay, so this wraps up the first exercise section. Now we're going to go into another listening section in 3, 2, 1, and go.
Ros Pomeroy has worked in the UK, mainland Europe, and Asia Pacific in a variety of areas, including sales, business strategy, and most recently, human resources and change management. She specialises in executive coaching and change leadership in both the public and private sectors. Ros, how typical are the merger problems faced by these companies?
I think they are fairly typical. The complaints that we've seen from the Asia entertainment staff, anything from what is the overall strategy of this business now to the cook, the Australian cook, and complaints about the catering, I think are real and they are understandable. They're understandable because there are people in the business who feel out of control of the change that is taking place. I think also it's easy to blame the difference in national culture in this example on the problems that are being faced. But in fact, in my experience, although differences like this can make the situation worse, most companies, when they try to merge, will meet resistance, and often they will underestimate the level of resistance that they find.
Okay, what did the speaker say about cultural differences that affect attempted change in companies? Will companies meet with resistance when trying to change? Are there any cultural differences in your company? How do you deal with them? Let's continue.
Reasonable are the complaints from Asia Entertainment?
I think they are entirely reasonable. The complaints and issues are real to those people and they will behave accordingly. So often when people feel concerned by change, it will affect adversely, badly, the performance of the organisation as a whole. It often can be the case, in my experience, that senior managers get very frustrated with this. They can't understand why people are not just understanding what's happening and getting on with it, if you like. But it is possible to overcome resistance. Resistance to change is natural, but there are things that the management team could do to make a difference and overcome that resistance. In fact, I would say that the best managers will actively seek the sort of complaints and listen to them and understand them as a way of helping to overcome them. And the worst situation is really if management ignores it all, assumes that nothing is happening, doesn't listen, and pretends that all is well, when in fact things really aren't well at all.
Okay. So, how should management handle change? How should management help employees to embrace change at work? How often do you think there should be change? What do you think needs to change in your company? If you had a magic wand and you could whisk it to change anything in your company, what would you change right away? The advertising? Customer relations? HR? All right then. So that's enough listening for now. Let's have another exercise. Past simple and present perfect still. I am still Tim, and I'm your trainer. Let's begin. Complete the sentences with suitable words or phrases from the list. Type each answer in the box provided. Complete the sentences with suitable words, that means the right words or phrases from the list. Type each answer in the box provided. Last year, sales dashed steadily from 1.5 million to 2.2 million. However, since the beginning of this year, they dash by almost 10%. What do you think? Look at the key language. What do you think happened? Steadily. Number 2, when we dash our order, you dash delivery by September 10. It is now September 14th, and we dash anything from you yet. Have you ever placed an order and it delayed? Have you ever placed an order and it was never delivered? That's terrible, isn't it? What do you think fill these blanks? When we dash our order, you dash delivery by September 10. It is now September 14, and we dash anything from you yet. Remember, you're trying to use past simple and present perfect. Finally, number 3, a dash. Number 3, dash Aldo lately. B, yeah, I dash him last Saturday. You know what? He dashed his job again. I dash him last Saturday. Sounds like a pretty specific time. So should it be past simple, present perfect? You know what? He dashed his job again. Take a moment to review your answers. Are you ready to check? Let's go. Last year, sales increased steadily from 1.5 million to 2.2 million. It's past simple because last year is a specific time frame. It begins and ends within the cited or referenced time frame. Last year, sales increased steadily from 1.5 million to 2.2 million. However, since the beginning of this year, they have fallen by almost 10%. Now that's present perfect because we're not speaking about an event that's locked within a specific time frame. Rather, we only know when it begins until the present. That's perfectly present perfect. Number 2, when we placed our order. Now that's what you do. You place an order. Okay. When we placed an order, you promised delivery by September 10. It is now September 14, and we haven't heard anything from you yet. So now we're talking about September 14 until the present, it means September 10 until the present. We haven't heard anything about you yet, meaning that the delivery has not been made, which means by extension that the delay has existed beginning from the 10th of September until the present. That makes it also perfectly present perfect. Number 3, have you seen Aldo lately? Now, of course, lately is not a specific time frame. It refers to any time beginning from the past into the present. Have you eaten anything lately? Have you experienced any change lately? You cannot say, did you eat anything lately? In that way, you would be suggesting that lately is a specific time frame. However, it's English. Some English speakers could get very creative. So, have you seen Aldo lately? B, yeah, I saw him last Saturday. Last Saturday, is that a specific time frame? Absolutely. Last Saturday is past. Yeah, I saw him last Saturday. If it was still Saturday, he or she would not have been able to say that they saw him or did not see him because Saturday is still on. So what she or he might say is, I have not seen him this Saturday. Or better still, I have not seen him today because the day is not over yet. But in this case, of course, last Saturday refers to a specific time in the past. So that makes it a past simple expression. To carry on, you know what? He has changed his job again. He has changed his job again. So now there's more practice on how to use past simple and present perfect. Now, let's go finish that commentary on change. Are you ready? I'll see you there. Okay, we can, for the editorial team, we can cut here to the commentary. Beginning in 3,
Ros Pomeroy has
2,
worked in the
1, go.
How would you advise the management to improve the situation?
Well, I think the management can do many things to improve the situation, but I think there are 3 particularly important ones. First one is communication. Second one is about clarity of the benefits of the merger. And the third one is about involving employees. So the first one, communication. I think the management team have to build trust. They need to be seen to be honest. They need to be involving people in their communication. By that I mean listening to what people have to say and being seen to listen. The second point, which is about clarity, I think always in change, it has to be clear to all and inspiring to all what the change is for. What is this merger for? What will people benefit from if it goes through in the way the management team want? And that's not just the financial benefit for the company, but sometimes some very tangible, specific things that will be good for each individual employee. And the final thing is involvement. And I think now is the time for the management team to get groups of employees together in working parties, in working groups, maybe mixing people from the acquired company and the parent company together and asking them to come up with their own solutions to the issues that currently exist. And that way, I think they stand a chance of making the integration a success.
Okay. Have you heard of any company integrations lately? What companies did you hear about? How did the integration work? Has your company ever undergone an integration with another company? What are some of the ideas that she shares on how to make an integration successful? Would you like your company to integrate with other companies or with other cultures? All these are wonderful questions, aren't they? What do you think? Well, it's time for another exercise. Are you up for it? Let's go. Describing change. Complete the sentences. Drag a verb from the list to the correct box. Drag a verb from the list to the correct box. How do you describe change? Number 1, the organization felt the need to dash, so they made their subsidiaries semi-autonomous. So, do you think the company felt a need to redevelop, to deregulate, to decentralize, or to reorganize? Do you think the company felt the need to deregulate, redevelop, reorganize, or decentralize? Number 2, management has decided to dash the business and plans to close 15 offices out of 45. Management has decided to dash the business and plans to close 15 offices out of 45. Management has planned to deregulate, upgrade, redevelop, reorganize, or decentralize. What do you think? Has your company ever closed any branches in the past? What were the reasons for the closure of these branches or offices? Is it sometimes necessary to close some offices or branches? Is this a positive or negative type of change? Number 3, our bank has just applied for planning permission to dash a huge size it owns on the outskirts of Hamburg. Our bank has just applied for planning permission to dash a huge site it owns on the outskirts of Hamburg. To retrain, to upgrade, to deregulate, to redevelop. What do you think? Number 4, our government is planning to dash all internal flights in order to make the industry more competitive. Our government is planning to dash all internal flights in order to make the industry more competitive. What's the government planning to do? Redevelop, reorganize, deregulate, or decentralize? What does a government do when they no longer wish to control all the activities? Number 5, the newspaper industry is struggling to dash itself as readers and advertisers migrate to the internet. The newspaper industry is struggling to dash itself as readers and advertisers migrate to the internet. Is it struggling to relaunch itself? Is it struggling to reorganize itself? Or is it struggling to reinvent itself? What do you say? What do you think? Number 6, low interest rates in many countries have encouraged owners to dash, renovate, or refinance. Low interest rates in many countries have encouraged owners to dash, renovate, or refinance. To retrain, to upgrade, to redevelop, or to reorganize. Number 7, Janet Rivers worked for a bank as implementation manager in charge of IT projects, earning 40,000, that's 40K a year, when she decided to dash as a plumber. Janet Rivers worked for a bank as implementation manager in charge of IT projects, earning 40,000 or 40K a year, when she decided to dash as a plumber. When she decided to retrain, to upgrade, to decentralize, to relaunch. Number 8, we plan to dash a number of our food products with new packaging, as well as lower levels of fat and salt. We plan to dash a number of our food products with new packaging, as well as lower levels of fat and salt. We plan to relaunch, we plan to reorganize, we plan to redevelop, or we plan to upgrade. Let's check your answers. Do you have them all now? Let's see. Number 1, the organization felt the need to decentralize, so they made their subsidiaries semi-autonomous. Now, to decentralize means to no longer control all the activities from one headquarters or one controlling office. That means other subsidiaries, other branches are given the right to make their own decisions. Is your company a centralized or decentralized company? Does your office or branch make autonomous decisions or semi-autonomous decisions? Or do you wait to receive orders all the time from the headquarters? Of course, the headquarters refers to the chief office of your company, possibly where the CEO operates from. Okay. Number 2, management has decided to reorganize the business and plans to close 15 offices out of 45. Of course, reorganizing the business means to change the way that the business is run. And with the new reorganization, 15 offices out of 45 are going to be closed. Has your company ever reorganized in such a way? Number 3, our bank has just applied for planning permission to redevelop a huge site it owns on the outskirts of Hamburg. So the company is going to redevelop, meaning that they're going to fully complete or change the look of or rebuild a site. The site is an ongoing work of construction. Number 4, our government is planning to deregulate all internal flights in order to make the industry more competitive. Now, deregulating is a little synonymous with decentralizing. When you deregulate, especially the government, when the government deregulates, it means that the government no longer makes or influences a uniform pricing system between competitors in the same industry. Does your company currently regulate any industries? Does your company set a price cap for any products or services in your country? Does your government make sure that no company exceeds a certain price cap or price limit in providing a certain product or service? Well, in this case, the government will no longer do that for internal flights so that the industry can become more competitive. Do you think deregulation would in fact make an industry more competitive? Number 5, the newspaper industry is struggling to reinvent itself as readers and advertisers migrate to the internet. To reinvent oneself or to reinvent an industry is to make an almost 180-degree change. That means almost total change, where the new form becomes almost unrecognizable from the older form or version. When was the last time you bought a newspaper or read one? Do you get all your news from the internet, or do you still wait to get the newspapers? Do you think the newspaper industry needs to reinvent itself? Has your company ever reinvented itself? Can you think of any brands that have reinvented themselves in recent times? Number 6, low interest rates in many countries have encouraged owners to upgrade, renovate, or refinance. To upgrade means to switch from a lower form of a service or style or product to a higher, more sophisticated version. Number 7, Janet Rivers worked for a bank as implementation manager in charge of IT projects, earning 40,000 or 40K a year when she decided to retrain as a plumber. To retrain means to receive training in another industry, in another direction than what a person had been previously trained to do. Have you ever been retrained? Has your company ever retrained employees? Do you think retraining is a good idea? Number 8, we plan to relaunch a number of our food products with new packaging, as well as lower levels of fat and salt. To relaunch means to pull back a product or service with the intention of upgrading. See, now that's how to use the word upgrade. The intention of upgrading, improving, in order to make it more marketable or better than it formerly was before launching it again. Hence the use of the prefix relaunch a number of our products with new packaging as well as lower levels of fat and salt. Has your company ever relaunched anything? How did it go? Why did your company choose to relaunch? Do you think your company should relaunch anything currently? All great thoughts. Now, that's it for this exercise. Let's take another listening comprehension exercise. Are you ready for it? Let's go. Okay, so this marks the end of this exercise for the editorial team. You can cut from here to the audio. Okay, now we've got some audios for you. This time you focus completely on your listening. Are you ready for it? Let's go.
Unit 3, Change, Track 14.
How do you advise businesses which are planning to change?
The two important things to take into account when advising businesses is, first of all, help them understand what does success look like. What are they going to change? How are they going to measure that change? And how will they know they've been successful? And I think the second key point is to make sure people are fully engaged in the change, that they feel this is something they are doing for themselves and not something which is being done to them.
Okay. What does the speaker say about people being brought on board with change so that they feel that they are part of the change and it's not being done to them? Is there a difference between being part of a change or just receiving a change? Sounds pretty important, doesn't it? What was the last change your company encountered? Did you feel that you were a part of the change? Or did you feel like the change was just done to you, like something happened to you? All right then. Now let's look at another vocabulary exercise. Are you ready for it? Let's go. Okay, so vocabulary exercise begins in 3, 2, 1, and go. Hi again. Okay, now we're here with another vocabulary exercise for describing change. Complete the crossword. Type in the correct answers. So we've got some words that go down and some words that go across. Now these are definitions. Okay, let's see how well you understand or remember the words. Number 1, which goes across. What do you think it is? To reduce the number of employees and levels of management that a company has. To reduce the number of employees and levels of management that a company has. What do you think it is? Any ideas? Hold it in mind. Number 2. Down. To move to a different place. To move to a different place. Can you think of any words for it? What do you think it is? To move to a different place. Number 3, to change the way a company is organized or financed. To change the way a company is organized or financed. Can you remember any words from the previous exercise? Do you think it's a different word? Number 4, down. To learn or teach someone new skills that are needed for a job. Do you remember someone becoming a plumber from the previous exercise? What's the word? Number 5, across. To make a computer or a machine better and able to do more things. What did we say about grading or grades? To make a computer or a machine better and able to do more things. Six, across. To give something less importance. To give something less importance. And 7, to make a new effort to sell a product that is already available. Remember a word with the prefix re? To make a new effort to sell a product that is already available. Are you ready for the big reveal? Let's see if you got the words right. Number 1. To reduce the number of employees and levels of management that a company has. To downsize. This is when a company lets go of some of their staff in order to reduce the number of employees and levels of management that it currently runs. Number 2, relocate or relocate. To move to a different place, that's to relocate. Has your company ever relocated? Have you ever relocated? What are some reasons for relocating? Better taxes? A better view? Cultural hunger? Or more customers? Number 3. To change the way a company is organized or financed. Restructure. 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 Has your company ever had a restructuring? Why do companies restructure? Number 4, down. To learn or teach someone new skills that are needed for a job. Retrain. Have you ever been retrained? Number 5, to make a computer or a machine better and able to do more things. Upgrade. Upgrade. Number 6, to give something less importance. Downgrade. Downgrade. And 7, to make a new effort to sell a product that is already available. Relaunch. Relaunch. Has your company ever relaunched a product? That means they made some effort to sell that product, even though it was already available. They made some new effort or some more effort. Excellent. Now you've learned many new words for talking about change in the corporate world, change at the office, change in business, change at work. I'm still your business English trainer, Tim. Now let's have a listening comprehension exercise. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so the editorial team can cut here again, and let's move to the next audio. Okay, here we are, beginning in 3, 2, 1, go. Hey, now let's listen. Are you ready to practice your listening? Let's go.
Unit 3. Change. Track 15.
What are the typical problems that businesses face when they're going through change?
The change is a very difficult process. There are many problems, but I would say the two perhaps most important ones are, first of all, what we think of as change fatigue. Organisations have often faced wave after wave of change, programme after programme. Organisations become very cynical about programmes' ability to deliver real change and change that's sustained over time. So it can be very hard to bring people along and create passion, enthusiasm around change when they've seen it again and again. And the second big area that I see is the ability to get leaders engaged and aligned around the change, so that leadership speaks with one voice. Leadership provides a role model for the organisation and, very importantly, helps the organisation stay focused on the change throughout what is sometimes a long and difficult process.
Okay. Now, how can you describe change fatigue? Is it when employees are excited about change because it happens so often? Or is it when they become indifferent or bored about change because they've seen it happen over and over again? Have you ever experienced change fatigue? Why do some companies experience change fatigue? How often do you think change should happen in order to keep a company exciting and the employees excited? All right, that's it for this lesson. Now you've learned how to talk about change. You've learned some brilliant new vocabulary for talking about change. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Have a great time till I see you again in the next lesson. I'm Tim, your business English trainer. See you soon.